Hey everyone, in today's video, we are diving into how mastering your cognitive load can significantly improve your learning and productivity. We'll be using a checklist to guide us through this topic, covering key questions such as what is cognitive load and how can it help me become more productive? What is priming? Can I come up with new techniques of priming by myself? What can be the guiding principle for coming up with new priming techniques? How can you use priming, especially before an exam? How can you prime yourself to study some material in a productive manner? What is the way of priming before an intense session of working on a project? And finally, we'll also discuss how can you prepare to manage cognitive load before learning something completely new. I'll be sharing 4 practical strategies that you can start using right away in this video. Okay, and we will also be answering all the questions that we have mentioned before. First, let's explore our initial checklist item. What is cognitive load and how can this help me become more productive? Cognitive load refers to the mental effort being used in your working memory. When it's too high, you can feel overwhelmed, get tired quickly, and struggle to absorb new information. You may also find it difficult to focus for a long period and you may become easily distracted. On the other hand, when it's too low, you may not feel challenged enough to make meaningful progress. As an action point, try to notice moments when you feel mentally drained or understimulated. Recognizing these states is the first step to managing them effectively. Now that we understand cognitive load, let's delve into a technique that helps manage it: priming. This brings us to our next checklist item. What is priming? Can I come up with new techniques of priming by myself? What can be the guiding principle for this? Priming is a technique that prepares your brain to absorb new information more efficiently by familiarizing yourself with the material beforehand. It works by activating related concepts in your mind, making it easier to understand and retain new information. For example, if you're about to learn a new scientific concept, reading a brief introduction or watching a short video beforehand can prepare your brain to absorb the details more effectively. This pre exposure reduces the mental effort required when you engage with the content more deeply. Let's use an analogy to understand this better. Imagine you have a bucket full of sand that you need to empty. The priming approach is like gently scooping out one thin layer at a time, consistent, easy, and you gradually make progress without overexerting yourself. On the other hand, diving straight in without preparation is like trying to dig a deep hole in the bucket all at once, then moving to another spot and digging again. This approach is not only exhausting but also inefficient. With priming, each layer you remove builds on the last, making the entire process smoother and far less demanding. The key principle is to keep your cognitive load at an optimal level. I'll share a few strategies that have worked well for me, and hopefully they will be helpful for you too. Remember, you can always develop your own unique strategies. Just keep observing and be conscious of the cognitive load or difficulty you feel when you study or work in a particular way and be willing to experiment. Building on our understanding of priming, let's look at how we can apply this technique before an exam. This leads us to our next checklist item. How can you use priming before an exam? Priming can be particularly helpful before competitive exams. Let me share an example of how I use this technique effectively. Just before entering the exam hall for the CAT exam for MBA admissions, I spent some time reading newspaper editorials. This acted as a warm up for my brain, helping me get into the right mental state. By the time I started answering questions, I was already in the flow. This preparation made a significant difference, especially in the challenging reading comprehension section. By priming myself right before the exam, I was able to reduce the initial mental effort needed and maintain focus throughout. Give it a try. It can make a big difference. Similarly, priming isn't just useful before exams, it's also effective when preparing to study new material productively. Which brings us to our next checklist item. How can you prime yourself to study some material in a productive manner? One effective strategy is to engage with the material actively before diving deep into it. Let's say you want to read 5 chapters in a book. An interesting way to prime yourself is by previewing the headings and subheadings and forming intriguing questions that may be answered through reading. This approach connects your existing knowledge with what you are about to learn. By actively engaging with the material, you reinforce learning and reduce the effort needed to understand new concepts. By preparing questions that explore relationships between key concepts, your brain actively engages in seeking answers, making the learning process more dynamic and significantly reducing cognitive load. Priming isn't limited to studying, it also enhances productivity when working on projects. This brings us to our next checklist item. What is a way of priming before an intense session of working on a project? Imagine you need to work intensely on a project. How can you use priming to boost your productivity? Let me share an example. Recently, I improved my content creation process for my Udemy course on the Data Insights section for GMAT Focus. Quick side note, do check out the course if you're preparing for GMAT. Previously, my approach involved going over a question that I had created and then proceeding to record a video explaining that question and then repeating this cycle. This method was draining as it combined complex material preparation and recording back to back, leading to frequent fatigue and breaks. I found a more effective approach was to prime myself by first preparing 5 to 10 questions in advance. After taking a break, I would then record as many videos as I could in one go. By doing the preparation beforehand, I entered the recording session with a clear, primed mindset, which significantly boosted my productivity and reduced cognitive load. You can apply this method to any project. For instance, if you want to write an essay, try separating the research and writing stages. Spend a dedicated session on research first, listing interesting points and forming a mental structure. Then, in a separate session, focus entirely on writing. This way, you build momentum, stay focused, and experience a confidence boost from the smoother workflow. Finally, let's discuss how to prepare yourself to manage cognitive load before learning something entirely new. This leads us to our final checklist item. How can you prepare to manage cognitive load before learning something new? Learning something entirely new can quickly lead to cognitive fatigue, making it hard to stay focused and productive. A practical solution is to use a simple priming technique that involves reading keywords, understanding definitions, and connecting them with related concepts before starting a new topic or attending a lecture. This preparation helps you process relationships during the learning process rather than trying to grasp everything all at once, reducing overwhelm and enhancing comprehension. You could even try asking ChatGPT to help you prime for the new thing that you're going to learn. Just ask ChatGPT that you're going to learn this XYZ new topic, and then tell it that you want to prepare in advance and prime yourself for your upcoming learning session, and then let it give you key concepts and key information and definitions in an easy to digest manner. And in this way, you will be well prepared for your learning session on a completely new topic. By integrating these strategies into your daily routine, you will enhance both your learning and productivity. The goal is to keep your cognitive load at an optimal level, challenging enough to drive growth, but not so overwhelming that it leads to burnout. I've included a checklist in the description below. Feel free to print it out and keep it somewhere visible as a reminder. Revisit it regularly to stay on track. Did you find this checklist approach helpful? Do let me know in the comments below. Also, check out this video where I discuss how to overcome procrastination using a checklist approach. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.